St. Patrick's Day. President Joe Biden holds a virtual meeting with the Prime Minister of Ireland. What they're saying about the Good Friday Agreement. Border surge. The head of Homeland Security acknowledges there is a problem, why he's not calling it a crisis. Political collision course. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill spar over a proposed change to Senate rules that could give Democrats dominance. And Flame of Christ. Pope Francis weighs in on the first task for the faithful in our daily lives. On EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, March 17th, 2021. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. President Joe Biden marks St. Patrick's Day with a trip to church and a virtual meeting with the Prime Minister of Ireland. The president renewed calls to uphold the Good Friday Agreement, which helped to end violence in Northern Ireland.
We strongly support them, think it's critically important to be maintained. And the political and economic stability of Northern Ireland is very much in the interest of all our peoples.
The leader of Ireland often visits the White House around St. Patrick's Day, but the coronavirus pandemic forced the two sides to meet online. The White House says both countries are working together to safely restore travel, revive the global economy, and respond to future outbreaks. The head of Homeland Security denies claims that the Biden administration's immigration policies are causing a crisis on the southern border.
The situation is undoubtedly difficult. We are working around the clock to manage it, and it will take time, but we will not waver in our commitment to succeed. That is our job. Accompanied children can make their claims for
DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas was questioned today during a House Homeland Security Committee meeting. He admits that the number of migrants attempting to cross the border is at the highest level in 2 years and is on pace to hit a 20-year peak. Former President Donald Trump told Fox News that President Joe Biden is to blame because he eroded the progress made in the last 4 years. A battle is brewing on Capitol Hill, but this one has nothing to do with a piece of legislation. Rather, the procedure of extending debate on a bill preventing it from passing, known as a Senate filibuster. Frustrated progressives are pushing to eliminate it, which would allow bills to pass with a simple majority. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports.
Only in the Senate can a filibuster occur. It's a parliamentary procedure that forces a bill to pass by a 60-vote threshold. In a 50-50 Senate like it is now, that would mean that the bill would need bipartisan support.
Fracturing the legislative filibuster changes the Senate institutionally forever. This is no small matter.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell warns that removing the need for 60 votes to advance most legislation would lead to dire consequences.
It is not a problem that the Senate stops bad ideas or negotiates bipartisan solutions.
But Democrats say reform needs to happen.
We hope our Republican colleagues will work with us to produce that change. We will try to get them to work with us. But if not, we will put our heads together and figure out how to go, and everything is on the table.
Now President Joe Biden added fuel to the debate by saying for the first time that he supports changing the filibuster rules. In recent weeks, the House passed H.R. 1, an elections and government reform bill, the Equality Act, which enshrines legal protections for the LGBTQ community, and 2 immigration measures. One provides a path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants brought to this country as children, and another gives relief to undocumented ag workers. With the filibuster in place, most, if not all, of these measures will unlikely garner support from 10 Republicans and will fail. Senator James Lankford tells me it should remain unchanged.
This is a unique characteristic that's been passed down through generations to say, let's make sure every voice is heard in America, all voices are heard, and we actually negotiate things together.
Right now, Democrats could vote to eliminate the filibuster with a simple majority vote, but in a 50-50 Senate, 2 Democrats are still opposed to eliminating it. So the debate continues. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
We are still awaiting a Senate vote this week on Javier Becerra. President Joe Biden's nominee to lead the Department of Health and Human Services will likely get enough votes to become secretary, even though pro-life groups strongly condemn his nomination. They say his extreme positions and advocacy for abortion rights are disqualifying. Republicans also criticize his lack of experience. The president of Portugal vetoed a bill that would have legalized euthanasia in the country. Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa issued the veto after Portugal's constitutional court ruled it unconstitutional. This comes 5 days after the Portuguese president met with the Holy Father in the Vatican, where the Pope confirmed that he will be attending World Youth Day in Lisbon in 2023. Catholic Masses in Northern Ireland will resume March 26 just in time for Holy Week. The country's Catholic Bishops' Conference made that announcement today, adding that measures will be put in place to keep attendees safe. Masses had been suspended since January. Pope Francis designates the Lateran Palace in Rome as a museum and cultural site. The palace is located next to the Basilica of St. John Lateran. For centuries, it was the papal residence. Now the building is in the hands of the Diocese of Rome to protect the church's beauty and cultural heritage. Joining us now is Father Giovanni Bialo from the Diocese of Rome's Pilgrimage Office. Father, welcome back. So good to see you. Tell us more about the history of the Lateran Palace and why it is so significant to Rome.
Yes, the Lateran is very important in the history of the Church because it's been the first basilica built by the Emperor Constantino in the 4th century. And it's been renovated and rebuilt many times during the centuries. But especially it's been for a long time the palace of the Pope, so where the Pope lived. And exactly this palace in the complex of the Lateran that now the Holy Father, Pope Francis, asked to valorize, to make a valorization, to let understand better what happened there during the centuries and what is the meaning, the important meaning for the Church.
Why do you think the Holy Father changed the Guardian? And in practical terms, what does it mean?
It's not a change. I will say that we have in the future many good occasions to let Rome a very good place to welcome pilgrims coming from all the world. We can think about the World Meeting of the Family next year, or in the 2025, the Holy Year. So that the people coming to Rome, the pilgrims coming to the eternal city, can understand better the meaning for the face of Rome, the meaning of the face of these important places where the Pope lived and where they lead the Christianity in all the countries. So that is the very important meaning, to give a new knowledge what Rome means in the history of the Church.
Father, do you have any favorite part of the building? And if so, could you share that with us?
The building is very huge. There are also now all the offices of the Vicariate, so of the Diocese of Rome. There is the apartment where the Holy Fathers lived during the centuries. The Basilica, that is already a place that has many visitors every year, is a wonderful church. We can only think to the mosaic the altar of the apsid, this wonderful mosaic with the cross. We know the meaning of the cross in the lives, in the experience of the Emperor Constantino. The cross appeared to him, and he let design the cross on the shields of his soldiers.
Oh, Father Giovanni Viallo from the Diocese of Rome's Pilgrimage Office, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up, some lawmakers in Illinois are seeking to eliminate parental notification before a minor has an abortion. How church leaders are responding. A group of Democratic lawmakers in Illinois are trying to repeal a law that requires abortion providers to notify the parents of a minor who are seeking an abortion. A survey taken earlier this month found 72% of Illinois voters say a guardian or parent should be notified if a minor is seeking an abortion. Church officials are also speaking out. Joining us now is Robert Gilligan, Executive Director of the Catholic Conference of Illinois. Robert, welcome. Thank you so much for your time today. First off, tell us more about this proposal. Who is backing it, and why is it being brought forward now?
Yeah, the proposal is being backed primarily by the American Civil Liberties Union and Planned Parenthood. Also, we've had an intervention, if you will, from the Human Rights Campaign. Human Rights Watch put out a report. So they're the three main groups that are behind it. And so they're trying to repeal the Illinois Parental Notification Act.
Can you talk to us about the danger of a proposal like this being put in place, in particular, the danger it poses to our girls?
Exactly. The law supports parents right now. This is a parents' rights issue. And what we have right now is a law that says that if a minor is seeking an abortion, an adult family member should be notified. We just have notification. Many states, all of us surrounding us in Illinois and in the Midwest, have consent. The parent actually has to consent, but Illinois just has notification. And so what that serves is an additional check. It's an additional eyes and ears overlooking the actions of a minor. And if we repeal this law, I think it's important to point out that that additional check is gone. So, we have a scourge in this country on human trafficking. And who's to say that a minor couldn't be taken to an abortion clinic by their trafficker? And if this repeal this law, no parent would know, no judge would know. And the person that's perpetrating this crime continues to be able to perpetrate those crimes. So parental notification serves a lot of purposes. It serves the purpose of protecting, perhaps, against a trafficking victim being continuing in this unfortunate situation. And also, the law undergirds parental rights, and it should. The law should support a parent's rights to know what's going on in their child's life. We have that in so many different areas. The parental consent is needed for every parent that's listening to this knows they have to give their consent for their child to participate in just about anything, sports, school activities, the list goes on and on. So to repeal a law that says a parent shouldn't be notified if their minor child wants an abortion is ridiculous.
Absolutely, is baffling indeed. As we mentioned, more than 70% of the voters in Illinois are against this proposal, as are the Catholic bishops in the state. What are they doing about it? How are they responding?
Well, our first attempt was just this week. Is what we're doing is we put out a letter. All 6 dioceses in Illinois, all 6 bishops put out a letter to the laity, notifying them that this issue is going on. Right now, because of the coronavirus situation in Illinois, our lawmakers are just beginning to meet again. And so a lot of people don't know what's going on at the Capitol in Springfield. So the bishops are doing their due diligence and letting the laity know that the issue is going on. They're trying to educate them a little bit about some of the ramifications of the issues, some of the things we just talked about. And then third of all, we're trying to engage them in being active in the political process by just allowing them and informing them of ways so they can inform their local state lawmaker that they should vote against this bill. And that's what the purpose of the letter is. It gives specific instructions to Catholics on how to engage their lawmakers to urge them to vote against the bill.
Robert, what comes next after this? And for those who may be concerned and want to get involved, how can they do so?
What comes next is, so far, the bill has not been heard in a legislative committee. We believe that the first hearing will not be till after the Easter break. So we think the first legislative hearing will be after April 12th. So we're urging people to contact their state lawmakers, mostly those in the state House of Representatives. It's going to be closer there. So we really, really are focusing on the state House. There will be a committee hearing probably in the middle of April, and then the action happens when they try to pass the bill on the full House floor. And that's when we really want people to contact their lawmakers. So what we're asking is for people to go to our website, www.ilcatholic.org. They can find out how to call their state. They can find out who their state representative is and how to call them. And secondly, if they want, there's a pre-printed message there that they can forward to their state rep that expresses the concerns that I just outlined. Meeting with them is another option. We strongly urge them to try to meet with them. And, you know, like we're talking now, if you can't meet in person, you can do it virtually. Lawmakers are open to that. So as much engagement as possible in the political process to urge legislators to vote against this repeal of parental notification is what the bishops are trying to do.
Robert, we don't have a lot of time left, but I want to ask you anything else that maybe I forgot to ask you that you think is important for our viewers to know, and any final thoughts when it comes to this issue?
Yeah, the message is simple. 72% of voters, likely voters, think that this is a bad idea. 72% of Illinois voters think that parents should be informed if their minor teen wants an abortion. And interestingly enough, when you look at that polling data, minority voters feel even strongly, they feel more strong than white voters do. I think the numbers are in the 76% of minority men and 74% of minority women. So this issue cuts across every demographic. You know, we get bogged down in the pro-life, pro-choice issue, and look, we're clearly pro-life. There's no denying that. But many individuals who are pro-choice also support parental notification. So I think it's important for people to realize that the important points to hit are that the majority of Illinois voters support this law as it is. It should continue. And secondly, that it doesn't matter if you're pro-choice or pro-life. This is about parents' rights and about a parent's rights to know what happens with their underage minor child. It just makes common sense. Most people, when they hear about this, they're kind of like, they get a little surprised that the legislature would even consider something like this. But I think that parents' rights should trump a child's rights, and that it's a simple issue that most people in Illinois support the law, so it should remain as is. And actually, we'd argue there should be parental consent, not notification, but we want to keep notification if that's their only option at this point.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Thank you so much for your time today and talking to us about it. We really, really appreciate it. Robert Gilligan, Executive Director of the Catholic Conference of Illinois. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Up next, a closer look at the life of St. Patrick and why a letter he wrote remains relevant today. Plus, Pope Francis reminds the faithful that we are called to safeguard the presence of God in the world. We'll explain. As we know, today is the feast of St. Patrick, and there's a lot more to him and this day than just wearing green. Joining us now is Dr. Matthew Bunsen, Executive Editor and Washington Bureau Chief for EWTN News. He is also the co-author of our Sunday Visitors Encyclopedia of Saints, which he wrote with his mother. Dr. Bunsen, thank you so much for joining us. Always great to talk with you. What can you tell us about the life of St. Patrick? I know a lot of people associate him with driving out the snakes from Ireland, but there is a lot more to him.
Well, the simple observation that you just made, that he drove the snakes out of Ireland, is just one of countless legends that are attached to his name. Great pious legends, stories of his work as a saint, as a missionary, but in a way they sort of eclipse the remarkable aspects of his life. He was born in Roman Britain, and at around the age of 16 was captured by pirates and taken to Ireland as a slave. There he spent 6 years as a slave, a very unpleasant existence, but it was also during that time that he underwent a very profound spiritual conversion. managed to escape, went back to Roman Britain, and was called to the priesthood. And what did he do? He went back to Ireland as a bishop. He's not the first bishop in Ireland. That honor traditionally goes to Palladius. But from around 431, he began the systematic evangelization of Ireland. And two things are worth mentioning in terms of that. The first was the way that he was able to preach the Christian faith, the Catholic faith, to the Irish pagan people in a way that they could understand and take to heart. And that's where so many of the great legends come in. For example, the Shamrock, the story of that, where he helped teach them about the Trinity. But the other aspect was, by the time of his death, he had established dioceses, he had established monasteries, and he had a native clergy that was able to follow him. So all of the legends are wonderful, they're incredible, but they really don't do justice to the fact that this one figure gave us Irish Catholicism, the great legacy of faith that followed him.
Yeah, it is so amazing. You mentioned the Shamrock, and I was going to ask you about that. Can you talk a little bit more about that, the significance of it?
Well, what he was doing was finding ways, according to tradition, to teach things like the Trinity in language and cultural idioms that the Celtic people could understand. So he plucked the shamrock, and of course it has three leaves on it. And he was able to use the shamrock as a way of explaining the beauty of the Holy Trinity and how each of those, each person of the Trinity is related, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But that is an indicator, I think, of the way that St. Patrick was able to build on the great legacy of faith that he inherited as in his training, but then to build that faith among the Irish pagan people. And let's make no mistake, he faced immense opposition among the pagan establishment in Ireland at the time. They saw him as a very direct threat to their power and to their legacy. And it took years and years of patience on the part of St. Patrick to overcome that opposition and to win over, especially the kings of Ireland, the tribal chiefs of the time.
Another thing I want to talk to you about really quickly is a letter that St. Patrick wrote. It was pretty poignant and a significant one as well. Can you tell us more about that and how it's relevant today?
Well, at a certain point, we're very familiar with the Confession of St. Patrick. That's sort of a great testament to his spiritual life, to the fact that, as he wrote, I, Patrick, a sinner. But one of the things that's often forgotten or overlooked is a letter that he wrote to the soldiers of a tribal chieftain by the name of Coroticus, who was probably a British tyrant, who came to Ireland and kidnapped into slavery some of Patrick's people, some of his flock. And he sent a letter, it was published widely, condemning the action. For us today, we have a couple things to learn from that. First, Patrick was condemning all forms of slavery, something that we're dealing with today. He condemned as well the kidnapping of people, something else that we're dealing with. I think, for example, of the actions of Boko Haram in 2014, kidnapping schoolgirls as they did. But Patrick was also making another important point, and this goes to the heart, in a way, of some of his teachings in Ireland, and that was the dignity of the human person. You know, Patrick himself underwent a conversion, and in bringing that Christian faith to Ireland, he was also instilling a profound love for the dignity of the human person among the Irish people. In pagan culture, it simply didn't exist, especially the rights for defending women, the place of women in the family. And he condemns at one point, for example, the fact that Coroticus's men divided up women as though they were some sort of a prize. So human dignity that he brought through the Christian faith, the defense of women and their rights, and then, of course, the Christian faith itself.
Now, Dr. Bunsen, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all that with us. We really appreciate it.
Good to be with you.
And finally tonight, Pope Francis reminds the faithful that we are called to protect the presence of God in the world.
Ma è lo Spirito che lo porta oggi, adesso, in questo momento, nel nostro cuore.
At the Holy Father's weekly talk, he says calling out to the Holy Spirit is the only way that we can open our hearts to Christ. The Pope encouraged us to pray to the Holy Spirit at the beginning and end of every important action to truly make him present in our daily lives. And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.